you don't need a mother and a father in the house. It would be great. It would be great. But what a kid needs is support, and lots of it. So if that support comes in the form of a mom and an auntie and two cousins or whatever, just supporting them and keeping them on the right track, that's what they need. A lot of times, having a man in the house is exactly what a kid doesn't need. And I'm a prime example of that. The best thing my mother could have did for me is got rid of my father.
New York, D-Town, LA, NO, Florida, Mississippi, KC, MO, JC, MO, KC, MO, JC, MO, show 'em what you stand for, show 'em what you stand for, show 'em what you stand for. Chi-Town, Tennessee, Carolinas, Alabama, Oakland, St. Louis, Detroit, Atlanta, show 'em what you stand for.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the Kings Can Move On podcast. You have your co-host right here, Frank the Tank, aka Big Reno, aka Kansas City Finest. And then you have my other co-host right here, Wood Up to No Good, aka Jason Stew. What's up, baby boy?
What's up, everybody? You know, once again, it's another edition of the infamous KCMO podcast, also known as the Kings Can Move On podcast. Welcome, everybody. And you know what? I get questions about, what's the Kings Can Move On? What's KCMO? So I just thought I would help everybody out by I thought, what up, Tech Nine?
What up, Tech Nine, man? Kansas City born and raised cat, man, doing big things out in Kansas City and out in the country worldwide.
Just so y'all know where we from. We're here from the town, Kansas City. So Kings Can Move On. And like I said, another edition. We have a guest. You know what, brother? I was thinking about when we first started this journey, right? On what we were trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it was Kings Can Move On. We're just two single dads trying to get better every day, trying to move on. And over the past season, we've had guests come in, giving us their information on how to get better, how to move on. And as you burn your sage, it's fitting for tonight.
Yes, sir.
I don't think we've ever tapped into the holistic approach.
You know why that is, man? We haven't tapped into the holistic approach because you don't believe in it. And I'm the one that believes in it. You know what I'm saying? You believe in the devil.
But anyway, we do have a special guest tonight. Actually, somebody is from Kansas City like us. We have Felisha Haman, also known as Feed Liberty. Man, welcome to the podcast. How you doing tonight?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on. We appreciate it. As I'm trying to get my lighting fixed. So, and you are a holistic nutritionalist, and you were from Kansas City, but now you're in other parts of the world. But tell us what exactly is a holistic nutritionalist?
So it's a holistic nutritionist, and what I do.
Nutritionist,
right. So there's a nutritionist, there's a dietitian. And then there's a traditional dietitian who helps people figure out how to stop eating so many calories and to create deficits in their diet so that they can lose weight or correct, health issues.
Mm-hmm.
A nutritionist is more of we specialize more in the root cause of why have you gained all this weight? So we don't particularly believe that it's just environmental. We believe that it can be things related to your health that you're unaware of, like maybe you have a bad thyroid, maybe you don't have the enzymes in your gut to break down certain things like proteins. So we take a more specific approach. We don't look at people as cookie cutter. We look at you and we look at what's going on in your head. What's your stress level like? What's your sleep like? What's your diet like? What types of food are you eating? What's your circadian rhythms like? Are you sleeping? What's your bowel movements like?
What is that?
Your circadian rhythm. I mean, circadian rhythms is basically the rhythm of the earth, the daylight, night cycle of things. And so it's basically, it takes care of us as the organism. But we don't understand that because we don't live in a world where we, are a plant that needs specific things. All plants don't need the same thing. All plants don't thrive in the same environment. All plants don't thrive in the same state, country, etc.
Okay.
So circadian rhythm is, we're humans, we're organisms just like every other animal. You have nocturnal animals and people, animals that stay up at night, so they should eat a certain way. You have animals that hibernate during certain seasons, so they should eat a certain way at different times throughout the year. So the nutritionist takes into account all of the root cause issues, like the stress, like the bowel movements, like, have you destroyed your enzymes with your stomach enzymes? What is your hydrochloric acid levels like in your stomach? But the holistic approach just means that if you came to speak to me, I wouldn't give you the cookie cutter answer. I would break
Okay.
you down. It would feel more like therapy than it would, someone coming in just to get a new diet. It would feel more like therapy because we know that it's not just food and bad habits, bad eating habits that makes you fat and makes you unhealthy. So, we try to break down with you and help you to understand we help you to understand yourself as an organism and not just as a person that, the US says, hey, this person has diabetes, this person has that, it's
Yeah, but
hereditary. We don't stop there.
medicine. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So I said you just don't say like a doctor, hey, he or she has diabetes. Let's give them on this medicine and that's going to work for them.
When you say diabetes to a nutritionist, you're telling me that there's something off with your food and your body. But if you tell a
Mm-hmm.
Western doctor that you have diabetes, they think, how much insulin do you need? And how do we supplement the organ that is malfunctioning? How do we supplement your kidneys and your liver? What medication can we give you to help you to process things like a normal, healthy human being? And you can see how that wouldn't be so helpful. What if you miss a pill? What if you
Yeah.
miss, what if you are not tracking your blood sugar? Then what happens? So it's
Yeah.
better to know what's really going on with your body, what's really going on with your health, than it is to just make dietary adjustments and treating you like the next person that has diabetes. Because you and the next
How'd you?
person who has diabetes,
Mhm.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to wonder. I was wondering how'd you even get started in something like this? How did you? Because like you said, the way that we grew up in the Western world, it was, hey, something wrong with you, go to the doctor. How did
Mhm.
what prompted your change in your work, or were you raised this way?
No, I wasn't raised this way. I was raised as a little hood rat, eating whatever we could get our hands on.
Okay.
Government cheese, bologna. There was this place called Walker's. I still go to that place when I go home. Well, it's not Walker's
Mhm.
anymore. It's Johnny's Donuts, and I get my Italian
Johnny's
steak out on
Donuts.
Prospect.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, bees eating, drinking the Fago soda and all. Just so what happens is in our country we classify things as food that are not really food.
Hmm.
And so we think we're eating food all these years until one of your organs breaks. And by one of your organs breaks, I mean you develop a chronic illness like diabetes, like rheumatoid arthritis. For me, I developed rheumatoid arthritis at a very young age, and I was just like, why? So I looked at my family history, and a lot of times the family history is not about genetics, it's about habits. What are
Hmm.
we all doing as a family? If we have a family that's obese, and if we have a family that half of us have diabetes and the other half is on blood pressure medication, maybe it's our lifestyle that is causing us to be sick. And then when you
And they
start
want to
to
say it's
see the
hereditary.
government, exactly, and it is hereditary in a way because your habits are
Hmm.
developed developed habits are hereditary. Certain people like eat chitlins. Certain people can't get away from meat. You can't get away from meat, but your body may not be a body that can necessarily process meat, like the next person's body. A lot of times it has to do with your blood type. So, and these are things
Mm-hmm.
that a holistic nutritionist would dig into. Like, what is your blood type? Why are you feeling constipated? Most of the time, chronic illness is a part of your gut has malfunctioned on you. And when your gut has malfunctioned on you, it typically points to a diet that is full of garbage that you're eating, i.e., fast food that is not really food because it's nutrient sparse. So
Mm-hmm.
your body, you think you're eating food, you think you're being nourished, but you're not. Your belly is just being full. And once it hits your belly, if you're a certain person, a certain blood type or whatever, it's not going to be able to break the food down. It's going to create blockages. It's going to create excess of this, that, and the other thing, and fat.
Do you think that we should be more on a plant-based diet?
Yes, I do. I think, and I'm not saying it's easy because it's not easy for me either. And I'm not fully plant based. I'm leaning towards that. Um, but to answer your question, what led me to nutrition was the fact that I was chronically ill at a young age and I didn't want to be. I had young kids and I started looking into, okay, you said Aunt Mary is sick, and in our types of family constructs, it's hard to really trace back stuff for generations because people are missing. You don't deal with that side of the family. You don't know what great grandma on the other side had, and I just honestly don't subscribe to that kind of stuff. I think it's a generational curse to just accept that anything is hereditary.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I think that's a part of the government that takes the power away from us in many ways by telling us who we are and what we can and can't do.
Did you hear
So
that, Jay?
I started asking questions and looking around.
Did Jay hear that? I mean, I didn't know if he heard that. It's part of what the government does. I didn't know if he heard
I must have
Yeah, I
missed
mean,
that
our
part.
government,
I missed the government
a
part.
whole other show. If we're going to talk Matrix, that's a whole other show.
that.
You're right. We need another another show to cover that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But Felicia, I am kind of curious. So with your approach to nutrition and what you do, does it line up with what Dr. Sebi was teaching, or is it different, or is it
Yes,
the
yes.
same?
I mean, Dr. Sebi wasn't lying. Like, if you think about it, and you think about your body trying to break down dead flesh, a lot of people with certain blood types, like people with O blood types, people who are very, very dense, like my daughter, she's very, very dense. If she doesn't have protein, animal protein, like 3 or 4 times a week, her hair starts getting brittle and different things happen. But her blood type, because, and it's not just her blood type, but it's her structure. She's very muscular. I'm supposed to be tall and skinny, but she's tall and muscular like her father. So she needs a little bit more protein than me, also her age. But she needs quality protein, and that's a big issue too. So we've been thinking we're eating ground beef and we're eating steak, but all steak wasn't created equally. Like, there's so
Hold
many
on, let
there
me.
a lot of the steak. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Let me ask that because you sparked something because I'm an O positive, and you're saying
Okay.
that different blood types should eat different types of food.
There's a school of thought that believes that if you Google blood type diet,
Uh-huh.
you will see. But again,
Really?
yeah, so just any other organism, you have carnivores, omnivores, and herbivores. We're no different. We seem to think that because we think we are the supreme being, that our government has told us how it really is, and so we fail to look at ourselves as an organism, just like a deer, just like a plant, just like a dog that needs specific things, and those things aren't the same. Your roots
Mm-hmm.
didn't come from my. We probably both have a lot of concentration in parts of Africa, but if we did our DNA, it would be different, which means that your ancestors they lived off of beans and something else. And now here you are eating McDonald's and eating, the bullshit that we eat as Americans and is passed off as food. Even the box restaurants with all of these the cheap food that they buy and doll it up with all the spices and things like that, it still lacks in quality. And by quality, I mean you don't know where that meat came from. You don't know, what was that animal? How was that animal? Did it face cruelty? Was the animal a part? Was he in a factory living in a 2x2 cell, or was he, grazing as he should have been grazing? Was he eating the things that he should have been eating so that you can have more control over what you're putting in your body? Because you need to know what you need to know what you are eating is eating. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
Because that's the holistic part, the connection to you
Mhm,
and everything. That's the holistic
mhm.
part. So when you start thinking, so when you start diving into nutrition, and when I started going to school for nutrition and learning about grass fed, the difference between farm raised and wild caught, and I was just shocked. And I was appalled because I said, why would our government even allow us to have all these shitty little grocery stores? And why do we have, fast food on every corner called food, when if you were to look at the nutritional profile of a burrito supreme, probably 40% of it would really be classified as food. The other part is processing.
Like,
Chem-
yeah, it's like fillers.
it's
Mhm.
colors, chemicals.
So,
That's why
and that's a,
I don't know if y'all noticed. I grew up on Taco Bell. I used to go to that Taco Bell that was down on Brush Creek, and I love the one by Kmart and Ventures on East 40 Highway or something like that. We've changed where we're buying the food from. We've changed where we're buying the meat from. Where we're buying meat from has different standards. Taco Bell buys their beef from Mexico, and Mexico has different standards on how much rat meat can be found
I'm sorry.
in
Time
in
out.
their
Time
meat.
out. I'm
Yes,
sorry. You
yeah.
said rat meat. Is that what you said? RAT meat.
Oh, you think rats are hanging out at food? You think rats aren't hanging out at all the food factories?
I
You
mean,
think that those big vats that are stirring up bologna, a couple of rats ain't falling into that bologna?
well, I've always called Taco Bell a mystery meat anyway. It's mystery meat to me. So I stopped eating there years ago, but um, I
I
guess
recommend
so.
if you're gonna eat, you get it from a butcher.
Okay, I
A,
could agree with that. Yeah,
a ethical butcher somewhere down on the plaza that buys their cows locally, and they know the owner of the farm and can drive by and see their food grazing.
yeah. Hence the whole farm to table,
Hmm.
craze that has become very popular. I mean, I could really go down a rabbit hole with conspiracy talk about what happened to Dr. Sebi, but I, I think that would probably open up a whole can of worms
It's
for
another
discussion.
podcast. It's because we could talk about, Dr. Sebi would lead us to a bunch of people who have tried to tell us the truth and keep us from buying into and paying the RX machine, big pharma.
Yeah.
But but yeah, that's like we could go on for days just about, because when you talk about Dr. Sebi, you're gonna have to talk about like what led him to his research,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Right.
And then that's where the conspiracy comes in when they told him he had diabetes, and he had diabetes, and he said, okay, so I have diabetes, so I'm a part of the hospital program now, the RX program now. I'm fine with that because you've told me that I have diabetes, so I will go to the doctor, I will take the medication until he found the Mexican medicine man that told him, dude, if you want to stop being sick, you have to understand your body, and you have to understand what you're putting into your body and how that manifests in your body. So but anyway, you're gonna have me talking about Dr. Sebi for the rest of the
No,
night. But
no.
yeah, so Dr. Sebi and
I figured that would
yes.
get you going. I figured, but we could talk about nutrition all show
Mm-hmm.
too, but I'm interested to kind of transition because you talk a lot about the government and what they're doing to control what we take and eat. And your background is actually you're in the military, correct?
Then I have receipts.
I don't know what to
Government
say.
government is gangster as hell, and it would be for me. It's best to not hate the government, but understand the government. The government has done an amazing job at controlling the masses. So I big up the government for being able to take a whole population of human beings and feed us the bullshit that they feed us and so successfully, do it. Um, yeah, I mean, the government, you could take some notes from the government. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
it's a,
Like,
it's a machine.
oh yeah, it's a very successful machine. With the religion, everything's tied in. Trust me, if you guys would have been following me about a year and a half ago when I was really angry, because I went through that angry stage of like taking the blinders off and just seeing like religion and seeing how everything was tied in, how monogamy and marriage and all this shit was just a part of like the blue pill. And I was on one, and people loved, we love to talk about it, but just as many of us love to talk about it, I was fighting all the time online, about
Yeah.
talking about Sky Daddy. Don't let me start talking about Sky Daddy because they really want to hurt me. But
But
um,
I could just shut up right now and let Frank take over because you are at this alley right now. You are on Frank's street at his door knocking hard because this is all Frank. Frank the tank could go down this road with you all night long by the government and the machine. So I think I'm gonna let Frank
Yeah.
go with it.
somebody muted me. That's the government.
That's you
That's
just
the government.
I didn't hear
That's the
you. What did you
government.
say?
That's the government trying to mute us. They didn't want us to have this seminar or this interview today. They dirty. They some dirty motherfuckers.
They watch him. They watch it and they like, we gonna watch her because we know she gonna be on her bullshit.
Yeah.
did your
Yeah.
disdain for the government come from your time in the military or what happened there?
So my awareness of the government came from the military. The assimilation piece, as a young person, you don't see it as an assimilation piece. You go to the Air Force, you watch all of your guy friends come in one way. They have braids, they have blonde long hair and locks. And then by the time you finish basic training, they all have the same haircut.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it starts. Of course, you don't see that as a young person because they keep the way the government works is to keep you distracted. And that's something I love about Donald Trump is he knows that fake news means let me keep you honed in on this bullshit so I could be doing what I need to do on the sidebar. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's so the military is you go in and you learn their code of conduct, their creed of service before self. Everything points to you placing them above yourself. And they
Right.
teach you this, and they give you this. They even affect your emotions early on because we're doing inspections where if you don't fold your t-shirt right, you're judged. So you develop this chronic anxiety and you feel judged all the time and you're constantly fighting to not be judged, which means you're assimilating to whatever. So if I don't want to be judged negatively, I'm going to follow the plan to not be judged negatively. So I'm going to become a part of the machine. I'm going to try my best to become a good part of the machine to gain your approval because that's how our hearts and minds are set up. We want the approval of things that take care of us and people that take care of us. And so at a very young age, when we can be manipulated, it's very effective, which is why people come into the military at a young age. And so as I grew up in the Air Force and faced everything that I faced, and I learned to speak passive aggression which is the language of certain people. And I learned how to get by telling people how I felt in a funny way, or adding humor to it to get by, so I didn't get incarcerated by telling somebody to go fucking jump off of a cliff. you know
Mm-hmm.
they taught me how to say that without saying it. And so I started seeing all these like passive ways of moving around towards success. And then at a certain point, the light clicks on, and you realize that you're a pawn in this game, and you realize that everything I care about is related to this organization. And then when you retire, so the reason I retired is because I took the blinders off and I started seeing it for what it was, and I had already prepared myself for a good transition. And once I figured out what was going on, I didn't immediately press the button. I used the system, and I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so a system can be used. You got to figure out how to use the system. What do I desire? And then I just went forward with creating my life based off of the cliff notes that were left, for me by this person and that person, this experience and that experience. And I just figured it out. So once I was completely disengaged with the military and I was able to find my own brain, that's when I started like, you get out of the military after 24 years and you're just like, who am I? Like, how do I like to wear my
Right.
hair? Do I
You have
still
you
wear
have to
my hair like
reprogram
Michelle?
yourself.
Yeah, it's like, do I even like Michelle Obama's hair? And it's like, no, because we don't do colors, we can do this, but it would have to be, up in a bun or whatever. You don't get to be creative. Creativity is not what they want in the military. They want you to assimilate, which is why we all wear the same uniform. We all say the same creed because we are group think. Group think. We are a
So,
machine.
so let
We're
me
human.
let me jump in and ask you this though. I didn't serve any time in the military, but let me play devil's advocate. So I know it does some damage to a lot of people, but what about the people that say they went in and it gave them discipline and structure and they came out better for it because of the military?
They're telling the truth. That's the absolute truth. That's why I say you don't need to hate the system. You need to use the system. Like for me, Fifi from the hood, without the military, I would have like 18 babies and 17 baby daddies, and I would right now be
You got
probably
18
doing some kind of
babies?
scam.
You got 18
Just
babies and
just because
17
there
baby
was
daddies?
discipline, maybe
No.
more. Yeah. I mean, I would just be wild. I would be I'd be a wild person without direction, and like
Right.
without I love some of the principles that they laid down. I don't hate everything about the government at all. That's why I say I don't hate the government. It works. It's a great machine. Like you just need to understand it. Like I tell my daughter who is a freshman right now, we got to prepare for the long game, baby. You got to have at least 7 things that you're proficient in. I'm not telling you that these 7 things have to be your passion, but you have to look at it. You need 3 things going on in your life where if you haven't figured out your passion yet, you can still enjoy the life that you're used to. So when we are going forward and trying to get degrees for you, we need to keep that in mind. So I told her today, you need to figure out how you can get into um, nursing so that you can work in one of these idea image type places that do fillers and all that kind of stuff. And I told her, because that's what your generation is going to be into, is aesthetics and beauty.
Mm.
And it's kind of new to us, but it won't be new to them. People are trying to hold on to that fountain of youth. So that's something that, she could get into that, and she could be very successful at it, and I also told her, coming to the military, my kids already have 2 streams of education already paid for between me and their father. So, like I told them, with my dime, with my VA benefits, I want you to do something like social work or something like teaching education. With your fathers, I want you to focus more on vocational stuff. What do you like to do? Do you want to do hair? Do you want to just get a little certificate in hair while you're trying to figure out your life? But as an African American person, you got to have credentials to make sure that you're okay, that you're going to be okay. And she was listening, and I'm like, you don't have to. I'm not saying that this is something you love. It's not always about something you love. It's about survival. And with you having an older mom, me probably not going to be here in 30 years to like guide you. Right now, I got to lay it all out for you. This is what you got to do. And
Well,
you
and
have an advantage that not people have. Hmm?
that was one thing that I was going to ask you because I wanted to know how you are incorporating your holistic lifestyle in with your kids. Do they know about it? Are you still allowing them to believe in a Western lifestyle, or more of that traditional Eastern holistic lifestyle?
So they have to live in this world. And so I'm allowing them to understand the world, and then I'm explaining what they're seeing. Like
Hmm.
just the other day, I took my daughter to the mall, and she was supposed to meet up with a girlfriend that she knows around the way. And when the girlfriend met up with her and her best friend, the girlfriend bought a cousin. Now, mind you, they're 13 and 14 years old. And so the
Hmm.
cousin came, and so the friend acted like she didn't know my daughter and her friend, and they were just like they were hurt. They were deeply hurt by it. And then the only time she really spoke to my daughter is to ask my daughter to buy her $15 candy. And so
Sure.
my daughter's telling me this in the car, and so I'm just explaining it to her. I'm like, hey, the reciprocity, like you are going to meet people like this. You need to take this as a lesson. This is someone who is using you, and you're going to have a
Hmm.
lot of people who want to use you in life. And it's going to be your decision. You're going to have to set boundaries for yourself. I can't tell you to stop being Brooklyn's friend right now because I know you care about her, but I'm telling you what I'm seeing. And you want friends that reciprocate. They give how you give, or else, you're going to be taken advantage of. Then I explained to her something that happened with my friend of 27 years and why we stopped being friends. And it's not, I knew it was not something that she was going to take action on right away because she's got to get her own lessons in life. But Chloe, I don't want that candle on at night, okay? All right, close the door. Sorry, that was her. Um, but it's just me, like, so a lot of times, and you know this as a human being, you hear your mom and your dad at weird times telling you something that that had no meaning when they initially told you, or even if they told you throughout your life, it had no meaning until this one thing happened. And then you
Hmm.
hear, like, my father was the absent father because he had mental illness. But one thing he always said was, fuck the dumb shit,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
was like, Daddy, I always hear him. He always ended with "fuck the dumb shit" whenever he was upset. And then
Yeah.
I would find myself in situations where something was happening or whatever, and I would hear my father, "fuck the dumb shit." And
Hmm.
so I say things to my daughter right now and my son right now because I know that they hear me, but they don't understand me necessarily right now. But when they need to understand me, they'll understand me. So I
That's
would
so
like,
funny that you even say that because I noticed those things about my daughter. One of I always teach her about, hey, the school may not teach you about Black people, but here's the things that you need to learn. School may not teach you about the government, but here are the things, or it may teach you a certain way about the government, but here are things that you also need to understand. And one of the things that she brought to my attention were some of the things that the government does. She doesn't stand, she no longer stands for the Pledge of Allegiance, not because I told her not to stand, but because she understood the value, what I was telling her. Hey, don't stand for something that doesn't stand for you.
mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, they're gonna things just like for you, the lessons that your parents taught you, some of the stuff you got right away, and some of
Mhm.
the stuff your mind wasn't ready for it, but it
Mhm.
was still in queue. And
Yeah.
I hear my mom now, like now I get like why we have ancestors and why we have guides, which is why I take parenting much more seriously now. And it's that day-to-day interaction where they have something happen and they're just kind of casually talking to you about it. They don't know what to do with that information or those feelings, and you're available. That's your opportunity to say, hey, this is what it is, in plain language. Do you understand that word that I just used? Because me and my daughter
Hmm.
do a lot. She's like, Mommy, I don't even know what that means. And I'm like, this is what it means, Chloe. And yeah, I mean, so I asked her the next day, have you guys seen Brooklyn? yeah, we saw her, but then she didn't speak to us. And I could tell that, it hurt her feelings. And I have to tell them that people are going to hurt your feelings in life. It's what you do with that going forward that is going to be important. So I tell them it's good that people are hurting your feelings because all you're doing right now, you're waxing on and waxing off and understanding how the society writ large behaves and how you can move around in that and not emotionally attach yourself to everything and everyone.
Okay.
So
You
that's what I do.
And that's excellent. That really is a good lesson to teach your children. You've also referenced a few times that you were Fifi from the hood, right? We've gone from Felisha to Fee Liberty to Fifi from the hood. So speaking of that hood, we do know you grew up in our hood, which is the great state of Missouri and Kansas City. So you actually went to our high school. Now, full disclosure, I don't remember you being there, and that's on me. I might be. Huh?
I was in the hood classes. Do you remember?
Oh,
do you know Rondell
Robinson?
Robinson and Anthony Johnson and those guys?
I've known Rondell since we
he's
was in
there.
third grade.
Do we?
So I was in classes with them.
I remember those classes. I used to walk by and look in there like, who's in there? I see Rondell. I may see one of the twins or both twins in there.
You remember Diane? You remember Diane Mebane?
I do remember
Diane. Diane was like my best friend. So
wow, really?
Oh, so you were one of them in school. Okay.
I was a truant. I mean, I was like, I came from 45th and Wabash. I didn't come from, I moved to the suburbs in 9th grade, but I was raised in the hood, like right off Prospect. My best friend, I don't know if you know Kim Cheadle or not, but
Kim is your best friend?
Me and Kim were best friends since from kindergarten to 9th grade.
I'll tell this story all the time, and
we're still great friends. And Jelena, Jelena, Judy, the whole crew. That was my crew. Tanisha Simmons.
I told Kim about 4 or 5 months ago. I told her to tell her mom. I said, "Hey," because her mom was one of my best managers that I've ever had in my whole entire life, ever. Dee was one of the coolest managers that I've ever had in my life. So,
but her mom passed away.
Well, I'm sorry. Her mother-in-law. Kim Cheadle.
Oh,
You talking about? You talking about Kim Cheadle?
I don't think.
Go ahead.
Kim Cheadle that does hair.
No. She actually worked at an insurance company. That's where I met her.
That's a different Kim Cheadle, but I mean, you know the Cheadle family, right?
Yeah.
Olive, yeah. So that's who I grew up with. Is that Kim Cheadle, and John Cheadle and Jimmy and all them. So I mean, I'm from the hood, and so it's weird because going to the suburbs in the 9th grade was just like culture shock for me. But I'm so glad that it happened because it changed my life. I was getting ready to drop out of school. You know what I mean? I didn't see any need to have school because I wanted to be a bus driver. I wanted to just drive the school bus like my sister did.
Time out. Wait a minute. You said you wanted to be a bus driver. That's what you said?
I couldn't wait.
Really?
I was like, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm telling you. The race. It's about the race. Like the race that was presented to me was not even, it was a snail's race. So we aspired to be able to pay all of our utilities and nothing more.
Yeah.
And get our hair done.
And let me say this to the bus drivers. I'm not throwing shade. Hey, you got a job like everybody else, and you do a damn good job getting us back and forth. It just caught me off guard when you said you were gonna drop out because you want to be a bus driver, but I respect the bus drivers. Hey, it's a job, right? And it's gonna pay some bills. So I get that. I get that.
That's what I wanted. I was like, I'm gonna have me a blue Toyota Corolla with tinted windows. and I'm going to drive this. I'm going to drive the school bus, and then when I get really good at it, I'm going to drive for the city. That's what I aspired to do, because the people that I saw, even Kim Cheadle's father, he worked for the Metro, and
Mm.
he always had enough to take care of all those kids and all those grandkids. And when you come from a survival mentality, your goal is to survive. It's not anything more. It's just, I just want to survive. I don't want, to be homeless. And your expectations are really low because your life has been pretty low. so so
Mhm.
yeah, that was a step up for me. I worked at Dairy Queen, and I was like, man, I can't wait until I'm old enough to drive the school bus. My sister's doing so good.
So
They have
Wow.
you said you grew up in the hood, and you know Frank has family down there as well. I grew up on 59th and Park, right across.
oh, he was
So,
uppity.
so I mean, I grew up in the hood as well, and then went to the suburbs in ninth grade. So a similar story.
Mhm.
Um, I I had a strong grandmother and mother though, so they stayed on
Mhm.
my ass. You know how they say when streetlights came on, you better be home. That was me
Mhm.
for real, because I wasn't home by streetlights. My grandmother got in the car and came and got my ass from wherever I was and embarrassed me like nobody's business. So I wasn't allowed to hang out, and do things that other kids were. So I was a little shielded. I was in the hood, but I was
You
well
was
parented.
insulated. Yeah, and you know what? It's funny that you say that, because people rag on like single parents all the time, and I always say you don't need a mother and a father in the house. It would be great. It would be great. But what a kid needs is support, and lots of it. So if that support comes in the form of a mom and an auntie and two cousins or whatever, just supporting them and keeping them on the right track, that's what they need. A lot of times, having a man in the house is exactly what a kid doesn't need. And I'm a prime example of that. The best thing my mother could have did for me is got rid of my father.
Can you
So
elaborate on that? Can you expound
Mm.
on why that is?
yeah, my father was, um, he was mentally ill before mentally ill was respected and appreciated.
Okay.
And so, my father was a veteran of the Army and the Marine Corps. But even before that, he was the darkest son of his parents. So my grandfather thought that my grandmother had cheated on him, and he didn't think that my father was his son. So he mentally and physically abused him. This is the story that I got throughout his life, to the point where at a certain point he would make him sleep on the porch. My grandfather
Wow.
ended up getting a lobotomy, which I don't even think they do those anymore. And he also passively killed my grandmother by beating her so much until she had an epileptic seizure and died at like 43. So just to give you a snapshot of the trauma that my father was raised around, and then him being so all his siblings are my color, and he is the color of night. And I don't know if my grandmother stepped out or not, but I know that the rumor has it that my grandfather didn't believe that he was his kid, so he treated him accordingly, which created mental illness within my father. And to deal with the mental illness, he self-medicated with alcohol and booze, which is something I didn't understand growing up. I just saw him as a drunk and a drug addict. But the way that manifested is maltreatment and mistreatment of my mother. And my mother finally, my father did some real crazy shit. He was bona fide like mentally ill. And it's funny because I didn't appreciate that until I was in my psychopathology class in my social work master's, and I started learning about the different mental illnesses. Not until then, and this is 41, 42 years old, did it dawn on me. I looked at my father's death certificate and saw that they listed him as having schizoidal personality disorder. Only then could I appreciate all the bullshit that had happened in life. But my mother leaving him when I was 2 was the best thing she could have done, because my father had no problem with me being a drunk, or he was a drug addict. So I'm sure that he probably would have been letting me hit some crack or whatever. but my mother just wasn't having it. So
Did y'all
her
get to
not,
spend time with your father as grown
yeah,
up?
I did. When he was in the, the way his disorder worked is he had moments of clarity when he was acting like a normal human being. And sometimes in those moments, he'd come around and he'd be a dad for about 2 hours and then go. But it's funny because my two sisters are older than me, and so my mother had a relationship with my father, so he was more of a father to them than he was to me. By the time I came, they were on the outs. So my sisters loved my father and had more familiarity with my father than even I did. And so I just didn't have that connection to him. And I just listened to my mom and my aunties tell me that my dad's crazy. He's like ninth floor of the VA crazy. That's something down on Linwood.
Mhm.
You drive by and be like, yep, daddy's in
Mhm.
there. And I just thought he was crazy because I had no appreciation for mental illness at the time because I was ignorant. And but so I say that some sperm donors, some some daddies and fathers would be a terrible example for a child to emulate, to to guide a child. My father, even when I turned 16, my father came and got me in his big Cadillac, and he took me to a liquor store, and he told me to drive, and he bought a 6 pack of coolers. And I'm driving down Prospect, and we're having a good time talking. And he's like, "Hey, Felisha," he cracks open a cooler. He's like, "Here, this is for you. Happy birthday." And I'm like, "Daddy, I'm driving. I can't be drinking coolers." Never mind that I'm 16, because I'm in the
Mhm.
hood, so none
Mhm.
of that stuff counts. But
Right.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, "Dad, I'm not. I'll have that cooler when we get to the house." And he got so pissed off, he took the whole 6 pack and threw it out the window on Prospect. And I'm just like, "Did you just
Right.
throw that out the window?"
Wow.
And I didn't really see anything wrong with it then, but spiritually, I knew it was wrong. That's why I'm talking to you about it now. Because why is that a significant emotional event to me if it meant nothing? I didn't have the words to like articulate how it made me feel then. But now looking back, it was a significant emotional event that helped me to better understand my father's issues, forgive him, and get over my daddy issues a little bit. But it all came later in life. So um yeah, so that's why I say that. But that's why I say that when you have support, so my auntie lived in the house, my mom, sisters or whatever, not like the best support, but more support than friends that I knew that didn't have the auntie and the sister in the house. They were getting pregnant at 13 and 14 years old because mom had two jobs, which my mom always had two or three jobs too. But I had my sisters to try to like reel me in.
Yeah.
And so some fathers don't possess the fatherly attributes that are needed to properly and productively bring a child into adulthood.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And like the saying
That's what I'm
goes,
saying.
anybody can make a baby, but it takes a real man to be a dad. So I truly understand what you're saying. And let me even fast forward then with I'm sorry, how many children do you have? Just the one or more than that?
I have two babies.
Okay, so let me fast forward to now you parenting your children. Is their father involved or in the home or
Yeah,
at all?
he's at home. I would not raise children by myself. Fuck that.
You just said single parenting. I
That
thought
ain't
you.
for me. That's not for me. Single parenting, I'm not interested in that. Like I tell my husband all the time, like we've been together, it'll be 16 years together in May, 15 years married. And we go through our shit, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not raising these kids by myself, period. I don't care
Did
if you don't
y'all
like
come
me.
go through y'all holistic journey together, or did y'all
Um,
come into it at different points?
I think kind of at the same time, like right now, he's wanting to do blending and stuff that I've been doing for years. He's certain things are resonating with him now that weren't necessarily resonating then. A part of it is because he's 10 years younger than me, and so his body and his
Well, he can probably he thinks he can do whatever and it'll be okay.
his health holistically are different than we break until something breaks, you know.
Right.
But also just he has like a healthier body in general, which is why my children have such healthy bodies. You know, they have strong bodies. I won't say just healthy, but they just have strong bodies, and his family lives into their 90s, you
Okay.
know.
Oh, nice.
So with a lot of abuse to the body, whereas
Mhm.
mine could go either way. My mom's side, you know, it's iffy. But my children, you know, they're a mix of us, obviously, 23 chromosomes each, and but they're strong. Like my daughter was approached at high school by a coach, and the coach was like, "Hey, are you an athlete?" Because she has such an athletic body. My son is already 5 feet, and he's gonna be 11 next month.
Okay.
So
Wow.
yeah, he's tall. My daughter, I'm 5'8", and my daughter's like 5'7.5", and she's 14. So the doctor says she's probably gonna be like 5'10", 5'11".
Okay.
Um, but even she lost 40 pounds from the summertime to now. She was intermittent fasting, which I was not a fan of, but now I see like how her body is supposed to be because she did it, and she listens to me, and she changes her diet. She's a kid still. So like I just took her to the store, and I think she bought some gummy bears. But
Hmm.
and I'm not taking that away from their childhood, but I'm educating them. Make sure you brush your teeth because you don't want to be snagger-tooth, and you don't want to
Hmm.
have like ugly smile, and but they're kids, so there's certain things they're going to do. But all I can do is keep educating them. My son loves to cook, so we cook together, and I'm trying to do healthier meals. And my daughter just told me today that she wants to cook once a week. Her favorite meal is fish, baked potato, and spinach. So
Hmm.
she wants to put that on the menu as something that she cooks. So, you know, I do her smoothies in the morning, blueberry banana smoothies. She hasn't wanted them lately because she's just not an early eater. But my son is not a big vegetable guy, so I supplement him with a lot of fruit that he likes. He really only likes strawberries and pineapples, but I make sure we always have strawberries and pineapples.
Do
And
y'all
so,
believe in things like crystals as well, or numerology or astrology?
well, I believe in crystals, and it's funny because my son asked me like, "Are we Christians?" And I was like, so I made him to earn money. I had him research on YouTube all of the religions that he could, and anytime he wrote a paper on a religion, I'd give him money, but he'd have to tell me about the religion. So he researched Buddhism, he researched Christianity, and all these things, and I told him we're spiritual. We believe I'm spiritually agnostic. I believe that there is definitely a God because our energies can't be here doing everything that we do unless something very powerful created us. I call it
Hmm.
source. And like I
Hmm.
told him, but I want him to choose what he decides to believe in, you know. And so he looked into Islam. He did some research on this and that. He hasn't decided yet, but he's 10. So
Hmm.
as he gets older and meets people, probably some girl is going to talk him into believing this or that, you know. I know that. But for me, I'm just being honest with them. I have no idea who it is. I don't know what his name is. Jesus, Allah, Buddha. I don't know. I'm not.
Don't
I'm
say
not.
that. Don't say that because I've been saying that shit. I've been saying that shit for years. And then when I say it on the podcast, Jason's like, I'm like, God, Jesus, Allah, whatever you want to call it, there is a
Don't
central
forget
source,
the
but I
what
call
other
it
one you
source.
got? The Christian or whatever you want you always use to
Yeah,
use them
yeah.
all.
But it's all, I
That's
think
why
everybody believes in a central source.
I call it source because we know that there is a source that is in has made the ocean and has made the mountains and the birds. And even though I think all that is an illusion, and I think we're just a bunch of energy, um,
Mhm.
right now I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with, okay, this whole illusion can't just be just random. So
Well,
Yeah,
I'll say this.
it gets pretty deep. That's a different podcast.
No, so far you've hit on. You could go 3 different ways on 3 different podcasts, other than one we just had. But the story you told is a very powerful story. And you're in, if I'm not mistaken, the Maryland area, right?
Mhm.
So for your holistic nutritionist, if someone in the DC, Maryland area is looking to find you, how can they find you for?
I'm on Facebook, Feed Livid. Well, I'm Felicia Haman, nutritionista Felicia Haman. So I have my Facebook page, and people hit me up on Feed Liberty also, and they're like, "Hey, I have diabetes. What should I do?" And I send them a GI chart of food and just say, "Stick with this food. Make sure it's non-GMO, organic. Just the basics." But yeah, so if they want to reach out to me, the best way to do it is Feed Liberty. And then my email address is mrsfeliciahaman@gmail.com. And that's Felisha. Let me just give you the whole email address. MRSFelishaHaman and I check that daily. So if they want to reach me, that's fine. But Nutritionista Felicia Haman is my nutrition page where people come and just kind of like look at my stuff, and they hit me up on the sidebar and they want consultation or whatever.
Okay, we'll definitely drop all of that into the show notes for reference. So those that do come across this pod, if they're looking for someone to help them out, they can definitely reach out to you. I do
Yes.
want to thank you, Fifi from the Hood, for coming on with the Kings Can Move On. Representing KC. So we appreciate you. Frank, you got anything you want to finish with?
Notice that you had those mushrooms in your tapestry back there. Hey, I'm trying to convince myself to. Yeah, I'm trying to convince myself to take one. I don't know yet. But again, thank you for being on. And everybody, everybody's gonna have a different cup of tea. Your cup of tea may not be what Felicia's saying or what Jay is saying or what I'm saying, but you have your cup of tea. But and the great thing about having your own cup of tea is you have that right to do so. That doesn't mean that you have to infringe upon somebody else's rights to have their own cup of tea. So always keep that in mind. Keep an open mind on whatever you are going through in life. Hey, there are going to be different ways to look at it, different ways to think about it. And that's all about the Kings Can Move On. And now we have a queen that moved on, Fifi from the Hood. Now she's Fifi, that's the nutritionist. So all love.
So, and with that, I won't say bye, Felicia, because I don't want to do that to you. But on that note,
got your system.
Yeah.
But now we appreciate you for coming on. Hang on for a minute. We're about to sign out of here. It's Lil J, Big Frank. You know what it is, y'all. Right. Kings Move On. We out.
New York, D-Town, LA, NO, Florida, Mississippi, KC, MO, Show 'em what you stand for. Show 'em what you stand for. Show 'em what you stand for. Chi-Town, Tennessee, Carolinas, Alabama, Oakland, St. Louis, Detroit, Atlanta. Show 'em what you stand for.